Welcome to the Leadership Development Program. This is Module 1, and in this module, we're going to look at who you are as a leader, from leading by default to leading with intention, building your leadership identity. Now, a lot of leadership development programs will jump straight into frameworks, straight into methodologies to help you to apply to your leadership approach. I'm going to take a slightly different method with this program, and we're going to start with you. We're going to start with who you are as a leader, who you are now, and who you are becoming, and who you want to be. How do you want to show up as a leader? In Module 1, we're going to look at what leadership identity actually means and why it matters. We're going to look at the difference between reactive and intentional leadership. We'll look at how your mindset shapes how you lead. And we're going to look at the first model that will help you to shift unhelpful thinking patterns. And we're going to look at that future version of you and the leader who you are choosing to become. As always, if you've done workshops with me before, we will have light bulbs and next steps at the end of every module. So this is something that I do in all of my workshops. We want to make sure that the learning is developed into action. And with every module, you will commit to your next steps. Use the workbook as we go. Make notes as we go. If you have any questions, you are very welcome to ask me. I will give you some reminders when it might be helpful to take a pause and reflect. Other than that, you work your way through this in a way that works best for you. Let's look at your leadership identity. We bring all of our experiences with us. Who we are today, and in particular, how we lead today, is all shaped by the experiences of our past. The leaders that we have had, both good and the bad, those that have influenced how we lead today. So we bring our past with us. And sometimes that's helpful, and sometimes it holds us back. So we do need to recognize who we have been in the past, what's still useful to us, and what we're ready to leave behind. We have our present leadership identity, who we are today, how we show up, how we think, how we feel, the beliefs that we have, the habits that we have, the psychological and emotional needs that we need to meet, the behaviors that we show, and the values that are important for us to align. Taking some time to reflect on who we are now will help us to identify how we want to shape that future version of us, how we want to show up, how do we want to evolve our leadership, what do we want to keep and do more of, and what do we want to get better at, and maybe identify where there are some gaps of what we would like to be able to do differently. So this isn't the learning in terms of we'd like to learn how to be able to do this, or we'd like to be able to model how to do this or model how to do that. This is looking at who we are, our thoughts, our beliefs, our habits, our behaviors, our values and our needs, our sense of purpose, our intentions, how we want to show up as a leader. I want you to think about who you are as a leader now, and how much of this has been shaped by your previous experiences as a leader and with other leaders. How much of your identity has happened by default because of situations that you have been in, or the ways that you have needed to show up for the roles that you've been in. It's really important for us to be able to move forward and to really shape this new leadership identity. We need to understand where we are now, and then we can understand how to move things forward. I want you to think about a year's time. When you get to the end of this program, what do you want to be different? What will success look like? And what will it feel like? So there's some questions here for you to consider. How will you think differently? As a leader in 12 months' time, how are you going to be thinking? How do you want to feel? There may be an absence of some of the feelings that you feel now. It might be that you want to feel new feelings in terms of your leadership. How do you want to be different? How do you want to show up with your team? How do you want to show up with your peers? And also, how do you want to show up with those who are more senior? What do you need to believe is true for all of that to happen? What do you want to believe is true in 12 months' time? What habits will you have? And what behaviors will you show? What do you want to be more consistent with? And what values and needs will you align and meet? If you need to pause at this point, just take some time. Take some time to brain dump. There are no right or wrong answers here. This is the opportunity for you to reflect. How are you showing up? How do you want to show up? What do you want to change? And when you're ready, we can move on to the next slide. One of the things that I have learned through my own experience of leading, and then also all of the conversations that I've had with coaching clients, is that we need to lead from the head, from the heart, and from the gut. Different people will lead from one before the others. Really good leaders recognize that all three are important. We need to lead with our head. We need to have logic. We need to have planning. We need to explore different perspectives. We need to have that capability. We need to approach things with curiosity. And we also need to trust in our own wisdom of our own experiences. So leading with our head is really important. And some of you will naturally lead from here. That cognitive response will be the stronger of the three. Some of you might describe yourselves as more leading from the heart. Emotions, empathy, connection, humility, self-awareness. All great attributes of a really good leader. Some of you will recognize that your strength is leading from the heart. And some of you will lead from the gut. That courage, using your instincts, using your intuition, achievement, that element of courage that we need to have often as leaders. We need to step into that courage. We need to recognize that our teams are looking for us to take those steps. When you lead with all three, then it starts to bring all of these great attributes together. Sometimes we do need to remind ourselves that the other two exist. So I want you to think about how you currently lead and where you might want to lean into more. It will feel uncomfortable because it is different. I want you to check in. As we work through this module over the course of the month, I want you to check in with where you are leading from first and how you can expand that thinking, how you can expand your approach to bring all three in together. What feels most aligned and which needs most attention. I talk a lot about reactive and intentional leadership. For me, intentional leaders are the most powerful leaders, and not in terms of power in a hierarchy, but powerful in terms of impact and influence in the teams and those who they are supporting and guiding. It's not experience, it's how you choose to lead when you are under pressure. It's also how you choose to lead when you are not under pressure. It's much more purposeful. It's much more intentional. You are leading by design rather than by default. Reactive leadership. It's responding to what is in front of you. It's what a lot of people call firefighting. You're responding to what is in front of you. You are being led by urgency. And the reality is it is not always your urgency. Sometimes it is other people's urgent tasks, urgent activities that are landing in front of you. And reactive leadership means you pick it up and you deal with it. It's driven by pressure and influenced by other people's priorities, which means you lose sight of your own, which often means that you are then fighting that additional pressure to stay on task and meet your deadlines and work on what is most important for you in the role that you are in. The other challenge that a lot of people notice with reactive leadership is that there's a lack of consistency because you are being influenced by environment and situation and other people. Decisions can change with circumstances. Decisions can change with influence. And so your leadership and your decision making's changing from day to day. When we are leading with intentional leadership, it comes from the root of your identity. That's why we are starting with this in the first module, recognizing what leadership means to you and aligning it with who you are and what matters most to you helps you to identify what intentional leadership looks like. We want to shift from the reactive leadership into intentional leadership. And that starts with the clarity, who you are and what you stand for. When you lead intentionally, when you lead with purpose, when you fully step into intentional leadership, you are guided by purpose. You are making conscious choices rather than those knee-jerk reactions. So it's a very conscious response rather than an emotionally reactive reaction. You'll be more aligned with your values, if not fully aligned with your values. You'll be very clear on your priorities, the tasks, and the activities that you are accountable and responsible for. You'll be consistent under pressure, which makes it much easier for your team. They know who you are. They know what is important. They know how you are going to show up. They know what it is like to work with you under your leadership. It's not different from week to week. It's not different from day to day. More consistent, more intentional, and you're leading with purpose. This can be a sliding scale. The purpose of this program, amongst teaching you how to be more efficient and more effective as a leader, in addition to helping you to build confident, self-sufficient teams, we want you to finish the 12 months as an intentional leader, showing up with purpose, leading with a clear sense of who you are and what you stand for. So this is seen as a sliding scale. Where do you sit at the moment? You have reactive leadership on one end and intentional leadership on the other. Where does the X mark the spot of where you currently feel you are? Then we can look at moving you closer to intentional leadership. We talk about intentional leadership as being values-led. Your values are the non-negotiables. Your values are the principles or standards that you live by. They're very personal to you. They would have been shaped from your early formative years right through to today. Your values are non-negotiable. They are what you will not compromise, even when it's incredibly difficult. And when our values are out of alignment, we feel it. When they are in alignment, it feels clear, it feels consistent, we feel confident. We feel like things are as they should be. And when they're not, it does feel like friction. We feel that friction. And that discomfort comes from having to behave and show up in a way that doesn't feel like us. Common leadership values tend to be integrity, courage, fairness, growth, connection, impact, service, honesty, accountability. These are the most common ones. Your values will be very unique to you. They'll be very specific to you. And I want you to spend some time thinking about what your leadership values are. The chances are they will align with your personal values, your core values. Recognizing what your leadership values are will help you to understand how you want to lead. Your team will have their own values. How you work all of those together will become very important. Today, we are focusing on your values. If you need to pause at this point to explore this further, think about what your 3 non-negotiable leadership values are and ask yourself the question, are you leading by them right now? Is it aligned? There will be an additional resource in with this module for those of you who are not clear on what your values are. That workbook is there for you to identify and get clear on what your values are. If you need to stop this video to do that exercise, go and do that. And then you can come back to this one. Understanding your values will be important as we move through the rest of this module and the rest of this workshop. In addition to your values, we need to check in with our behaviors. And our values will drive the way that we think, the way that we feel, and the way that we show up. Our mindset is a collection of the beliefs that we hold. And those beliefs are not necessarily fact, but they will feel very true to us. They would have been shaped, again, by our early formative years. They would have been shaped through our own experiences and experiences of others who we know. We need to be critical and challenging our thinking. We need to be critical in challenging the beliefs that we hold, especially when we recognize that they are not helping us, because our mindset influences our behavior. Our behavior will influence the results. Carol Dweck completed a range of case studies as part of her research. It is a book definitely worth reading for the case studies alone. And those case studies have created the two mindsets that she describes as a result of her research: fixed mindset and growth mindset. With fixed mindset, the belief is that our abilities are largely fixed at birth. There is a ceiling as to what is possible. There is a limit to our potential in our capability. With growth mindset, the belief is that our abilities can be developed. It almost makes that potential limitless. As long as we keep putting the effort, the energy, the enthusiasm in, the possibilities become endless. With fixed mindset, what tends to happen is that people will avoid challenges. They will give up more easily when those obstacles appear. And there is an element where they will take feedback personally. They can often feel threatened by other people being successful, and there's a focus on proving themselves. It's a very different mindset to the growth mindset. And most people will be predominantly one or the other. However, there will be elements where you recognize you have a fixed mindset to a certain skill or a certain ability. This is where we are keeping our eyes open and being curious as to what we notice as we move through the program, where you recognize there may be a fixed mindset, where there's a focus on failing, where that feedback feels more personal. And it feels personal because we feel like we have pushed ourselves to the limit of what is possible. So when we hit that limit, when we hit that ceiling, we feel that failure so much more. When we have the growth mindset, we don't see the ceiling. We see that we have reached the limit for now, but we want to keep working. We're asking questions. So we see feedback as an opportunity to learn and be better. We see failure as more of, well, that didn't work. What else can I try? Or we see failing as that next starting point to see what else is possible. So things feel more of a challenge rather than a threat. And the effort is part of growth. We see the feedback as opportunities to learn, and we see other people being successful also as opportunities for us to learn. The focus isn't always on the outcome or on the end goal or achievement, because that can always move. The focus is on continuous improvement, on making progress, on the journey itself. And the key questions: what can I learn? How can I get better? I want you to pay attention to this as we move through each module, because the most successful leaders are not those who know everything. They're the ones who remain open to learning, adapting, and growing. Being okay with saying, I don't know, and asking questions. Being okay with not getting things right first time, but leaning into trying things that are different. You may recognize you fit into one of these two categories. A lot of people will feel they fit into the growth mindset category. However, there will still be elements of the work that you do that you potentially have a fixed mindset towards. I know what mine are. And when it comes up in discussions, I openly share mine. I'm not great at maths and I didn't go to university. So anything that feels academic, I can feel myself shrinking away from it. And I have to challenge myself continuously to push through that and remind myself it's not fixed. There is potential. I would need to put effort and energy into it to keep that growth going. Think about where you notice you have a fixed mindset. And if nothing is coming up for you right now, that's not a problem. I want you to be aware of it as we move through each module, as we challenge ourselves to learn and as we challenge ourselves to try things different. I want you to keep that growth mindset in mind. Embrace the challenges. When there are setbacks, be persistent, learn from those setbacks, challenge yourself to look at what others are doing, how they are approaching it, and see what else you could try that might work from you. Ask for feedback and focus on that continuous improvement. As we move through the next 12 months on the program, where can you continuously improve? Where will you look for those improvements to know that that progress is happening? The reflection question on the end of this slide, where do you notice a fixed mindset showing up in your leadership? And what does it cost you when it does? Definitely something to think about. The ABCDE model falls nicely into this element of the work, especially when we are looking at challenging the beliefs that we hold to be able to grow in our leadership ability and capability. This model comes from cognitive behavioral coaching, very similar to cognitive behavioral therapy, which some of you will be familiar with, but it's more in a coaching environment. The way that our brains work, we put any information, situations that we are in, people that we are with, conversations that we have, we put through a filter. And that filter is the narrative that we hold, the story that we tell ourselves. This means that in a room of 10 people, all 10 people can experience exactly the same situation. However, it all goes through a different filter and a different frame of reference. Understanding what our frame of reference is becomes very important because sometimes we need to challenge how this comes through the filter. So we have an activating event. Something happens that we experience. When we experience that, it goes through all of the beliefs that we hold. And our beliefs that we hold tell us how we feel about this event. Now, sometimes that's very helpful. In fact, a lot of the time that is very helpful. Sometimes it's not helpful. And we need to challenge the belief that we hold if we want to feel differently, think differently, or behave differently. So we have an activating event. It goes through our belief system, and that changes how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. Now, a lot of the time when people are trying to change a behavior or change how they think or feel about something, they will try and change it on a surface level. They will try to use willpower to respond differently. Unless you change the belief that is driving how you think, how you feel, and how you behave, it is very difficult, not impossible, but it is difficult to change how you behave in response. So the work is in challenging what that belief is so that when it happens, you think differently, you feel differently, and you behave differently. The ABC model is used a lot in cognitive behavioral therapy. In coaching, because we are looking forward and we are looking to change future behaviors, future responses, the D and the E gets added in. So in addition to looking at what the belief is that we want to change and how we want to feel about it instead, or how we want to respond to it instead, we need to challenge that belief. So we need to really understand what that belief is. We don't necessarily need to understand where it's come from, but we do need to identify what the belief is, and we need to challenge it. Now, in coaching sessions, I'll be listening out for words like I always or I never, because when we put things through that internal frame of reference, when we put it through that filter, we tend to delete, distort, or generalize to fit the narrative that we already hold. So when I hear clients use words like I never or I always, that's often generalization. It also means they've distorted things to fit the narrative. So if it wasn't quite like it, they'll distort it so that it fits, or they will delete the information that doesn't fit the story they are telling themselves. When I hear words like I never or I always, my coaching question will be, never? Has there never been a time where this has been different? And 9 times out of 10, there is. But their brain has conveniently deleted it or distorted it to secure and strengthen the story that they tell themselves. We have to challenge that belief. Now, it does say it's irrational on this model. Sometimes it will be a rational belief. There will be an experience. The challenge that might tip it into it being irrational is that we've deleted anything where that doesn't apply or doesn't fit, or we've generalized things to fit. So if we've deleted, distorted, or generalized to fit it, we've made a rational belief into an irrational belief. The next step is to effectively replace the old behavior with a new behavior. So this is what I used to believe. This is what I want to believe instead. And then we need to go out and we need to actively gather that evidence to support that new belief. We need to go out and challenge ourselves to see things differently, to gather the evidence that will help to strengthen what we want to believe is true. You may need to rewind and watch this bit back again. We'll add in an additional workshop for those who want to explore this further. It may help you to think of a recent situation where your response as a leader didn't quite feel like your best. Work through A to E. What was the event? What was the belief? What did the belief make you think, make you feel, and make you respond in terms of your behavior? How can you actively challenge that belief? Where is it true? Where is it not true? What is the evidence actually telling you when you go past that story that you've been telling yourself, probably for quite a long time? And what do you want to believe instead? And then the next step is to start looking at where you can go out and gather that evidence to support that new belief. We've looked at this in several different ways for this workshop. The leader you are today is not the finished version, not by any means. There, in my opinion, isn't an end to the evolution of a leader. And in my experience, the leaders who are the best possible leaders are always evolving. So today is by no means the finished version of you. This program is the invitation to get intentional about who you are becoming. In 12 months' time, the future version of you thinks differently, shows up differently, makes decisions differently, has let go of something that was holding them back, and has built something new. It might not take 12 months for all of this to happen. You might find that some of the changes come very quickly, and that as we work together through the program, it's embedding them and making them permanent. Describe the leader you want to be in 12 months. What does success look and feel like? Go back through those other slides, pull out different elements of those slides that have really resonated with you, to build this future version of you as a leader. There will be many things that I share with you over the course of the 12 months. Not all of it will work for you. Take the principle, but not the plan. If the whole model doesn't work for you, take the principle of that model and look at how you can apply that into your day-to-day leadership. There will be lots of things that you will look at and think that's not going to work for me. That's okay. This program is about you learning lots of different methods and frameworks and giving you the opportunity to reflect and think about your leadership and how you want your leadership to evolve. Some of it will apply and some of it won't. This isn't about shoehorning you or putting you through a sausage machine so that you all come out the other side looking the same. This is helping you to be intentional about who you want to become, not who other people think you need to become, not who your organization says you need to become, not who past leaders have said that you need to become. You and you alone. So if you need more time, keep pausing the workshop, spend some time reflecting on it. You've got a couple of weeks as we work through this module. We've got a month aligned to it. So if you need to come back, revisit it, come back and revisit it. The next stage is to complete your leadership identity statement. This is a short, clear statement of who you are as a leader and what you stand for. And once this is completed, I want you to put this somewhere where you can see it, somewhere that is visible for you. It will be private to you. You might choose to share it with others. I want you to put it somewhere where it is visible. There's some sentences here that will help you to write the statement. I am a leader who, what do you value? What's your approach? I lead by, how do you want to show up? The impact I want to have is what matters most to you. You don't need to follow this in a prescriptive way. If it helps for you to think about your values, think about what matters to you, think about what behaviors you want to have, or take a step back, think of it as a third person. How would you want a third person to describe you? If you think about somebody on your team right now, if somebody was to speak to them in 10 years' time and say, you worked with them, what were they like as a leader? How do you want people to talk about you? What legacy do you want to leave the organizations that you work for and the people that you work with? What's your leadership identity statement? We will revisit this over the course of the year, and we will definitely revisit this at the end of the 12 months to see how it might shift, how it might evolve, or maybe how you fully step into this identity. Okay. I mentioned at the beginning the light bulb and next steps. The light bulb is something that you've learned, something that's resonated with you, maybe something that you already knew that you needed to hear and be reminded of. We turn the learning into a next step. That's why we have the light bulb. It's why we have the footprint. Now I know what I know, I commit to. How will you turn the learning into action? Keep it small, keep it simple, and keep it specific. You are more likely to turn this learning into action and make that change if it is small, if it is simple, and if, as you write this down, you can picture a scenario or a situation where you can implement this. Be very specific about what this looks like and what this looks like once it is implemented. And that will help you to create change. And the more change we create, the more things evolve. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. So we want to make sure that things are changing as we move through the program. Light bulb, next step. Now I know what I know. This is what I want to do differently. This is what I'm committing to for module 1. If you have any questions, you are very welcome to reach out to me and ask. You have several ways to be able to do that. Email, WhatsApp, or in the forum that you are in and where you are finding this content. Any question at all is fine by me. The chances are, if you have that question, somebody else will benefit from the answer. So please do feel free to ask. And that is it for module 1. We have the month to implement this learning, put it into practice, make some small, simple, and specific changes. And I will be back with the next module very soon.